Hi, everyone. I'm Steven Sigman,
And I'm Mike Massinio.
and this is the weekly movie throwdown, where each week we take two films that have something in common and talk through them to find out which one is better. This week, it's a throwdown between two films that are essentially dinner parties gone wrong with a little bit of a cult influence on them. It's 2015's The Invitation throwing down against The Menu from 2022. I really like both of these films. I think they're going to be a lot of fun to discuss. I don't know which way I'm leaning once again, so we're going to have to talk through the finer points of them so I can have an answer at the end.
I don't really have wins of the week, but I did. There were things that I wanted to talk about. I saw two movies this week. One of them was Motor City, which, so the trailer for it seemed interesting. It's like a movie in my wheelhouse, so I went to go see it. And I'm always a little nervous about, movies with like a capital P like premise where like it's almost like the idea is the center of the movie. And this one is the movie is mostly free of dialogue. And I was intrigued by that. I think it's a fun way to make a throwback type of movie. And there were some scenes in it that were really enjoyable, but that kind of gimmick tends to fall apart if the script isn't really great. Like, you have to make a really great script to make something work when you're essentially doing a gimmick. And there were just certain parts of the movie where the non-dialogue made no sense, where there are scenes where people really should be speaking, and when they don't, it's like, it just kind of stunts the movie almost, where it makes you feel like you're watching a performance now instead of something that's naturalistic, if that makes sense. And so that started taking me out of the movie a little bit, but the ending is really what did it for me. I really think the ending was a misstep, and I won't say what it is because maybe you watch it. So, but it ended up being an okay movie, not a great movie. The other thing that I finally watched was Masters of the Universe, which dropped on Amazon Prime. And I mean, I am someone who loved He-Man when I was a kid. And the best part about it is how they talk about the names of the characters. Because the names are pretty silly. There's just Beastman and He-Man and Lockjaw and things. And I won't spoil the gimmick for that. That's the one part of the movie I really enjoyed. But the movie is 2 hours and 20 minutes long. Who on earth thought a movie about He-Man should be 2 hours and 20 minutes? I mean, there are at least three parts of the movie where not only did I think it was going to end, I was praying to God that it would end. And it just did not end.
Wow.
It was exhausting. It was exhausting. There's just almost no premise within this movie that could withstand that level of screen time. And there would be 20 minutes of good movie in it. I mean, it was just amazing. I don't know what was going on there. Even my 11-year-old who thinks Aquaman 2 is a fantastic movie said this movie was just okay. That tells you all you need to know.
Wow. What is up with Amazon and these long run times?
I have no idea.
Project Hail Mary was the same way.
But that at least was good. I don't know what the hell was going on with this. But, yeah. So there's that. There's one last thing I just want to mention real quick because I feel like it has to be said. We lost Glenn Hansard this week. And besides the fact that Once is one of my favorite movies, I mean, we've talked about it before, I just think that Glenn Hansard himself was just a wonderful artist, just a really beautiful soul. Not to be hokey about the whole thing, but I think his songwriting was wonderful. He had this great humanity to the way that he wrote and wrote about pain and beauty in a way that was truly moving to me. Mm-hmm. And I think it's just a huge loss. And I think that everyone would benefit from just going and listening to some of his music, whether it's his solo work or the Swell season. It was just a beautiful artist. And it's just really sad that he's gone.
Yeah, he was like 56 or something, or 53.
Yeah, he was 56. He had a 3-year-old child. It's just really tragic.
I always say to people the scene in Once where they get the money for the recording studio and the engineer is completely dismissive of them until he hears them play, and then all of a sudden he's like, oh my God, is like one of my favorite scenes in film history. It's such a great example of the underdog just like getting attention for this work that you wouldn't expect them to be able to make. And it's such a moving scene to me. And most of that is his performance. Like,
Yeah. I'll just share one quick thing. I saw the Swell season a couple of years ago, actually. They played a show at Radio City Music Hall. Decent sized venue. And because he was a busker on the streets, he has this great ability to project his voice. And there were parts of the show where they didn't even use microphones. And it's just Glenn Hansard and the band on stage without any amplification, filling Radio City Music Hall with just the power of his voice. And there were certain parts of that show that actually moved me to tears. And it was partially coming off the fact that this was one of the first shows we saw after COVID. So it was the first time I'd been in an arena with people after that. And I just think that was partially why they went on tour as well, because they had scheduled a tour in the past that didn't end up working out. And so I think just the whole scene of it, but just beauty of their performances. It was truly something to see. He was a wonderful live performer. And I'm really glad that I got to see him before he passed.
I think you and I just talked about the Swell season of like a month ago or something, and you were telling me about seeing them. And
yeah, that's possible.
Wow. Yeah, what a loss. I was very surprised. I mean, it felt, I mean, you don't know the guy, but the music means so much. And anytime somebody so young goes and you just weren't prepared for it, it's like such a gut punch. So
yeah, I'm always aware to say that you never truly know any artist. They're always at arm's length. I will say in his case, he was very hard on his sleeve, and even in interviews and his songwriting was very confessional and upfront about all of the things that he felt and the struggles that he's been through. That's not saying that we know him any better than anyone else, but there was a certain rawness to the way that he presented his work that made you feel closer to him in some way. And I think that's why the people that really loved his work feel the loss a little bit more.
Yeah, I never got to see him, unfortunately, but seeing the performances in Once, I get a sense of it. And I do remember he played a lot of shows with Eddie Vedder for a while, and seeing them together on stage was really cool. And you could just see the musicianship and the passion. And it was, it's very moving, just a moving performer.
Yeah, and you can tell by the people that really loved him and the musical company that he kept, I guess the kind of artist that he was, that after he passed away, you saw people giving tributes to him. Everyone from Jack Johnson and Springsteen and Eddie Vedder and all these people that had played with him. Down to, I mean, the night that he died, he was at a pub that does a monthly get-together of Irish folk artists, and they sing like Irish folk tunes together. Just someone who was part of that community and part of the musical heritage of Ireland and was really proud of it.
Oh, I really hate to go down this road, but all I can think of when you tell me that is that scene in The Other Guys when they're singing those Irish dirges at the bar.
No, that may very well have been what it was like. I don't know.
Probably more interesting lyrics than that, but rest in peace, Glenn Hansard. That's a real loss. I'm going to shift gears. It's hard to follow that up, but my win of the week is from way back. So from 1939, I watched The Women, the George Cukor film. Have you seen that?
I have. I've seen it multiple times.
It's wonderful.
It is.
It's based on a stage play. Not a single man in it. That's what's so, like, speaking of gimmicks with Motor City, this is very gimmicky in that sense, and there are times when you feel it's written in a way that there should probably just be a man there, and you wouldn't have to jump through as many hoops to like make a point about what they're trying to say. But it's this story of Manhattan socialites and divorce in the 30s, and Reno, Nevada, where all of these women go to like set up residency to get a divorce, and just a lights out cast with Norma Shearer, Rosalind Russell, Joan Crawford, Joan Fontaine, Hedda Hopper's even in it, which is pretty cool.
Right.
But Virginia Welder's in it, who played Dinah in the Philadelphia Story, which we covered a few months back. The really precocious kid, and she's just as precocious here. It's something I'd been wanting to see for a while. I never got around to it, and Laura convinced me to sit down and watch it with her. And really, really fun film. So if you haven't seen it, I think it's on HBO Max right now as part of their TCM arm. So highly, highly recommend The Women. It's a lot of fun. That's really my only win of the week. I will also say that I saw Her Private Hell, which is Nicholas Winding Refn's new film, and I really had my fingers crossed for something great. And it wasn't. I mean, it was okay, visually incredibly beautiful, but it felt so cold and like just sort of void of emotion, and kind of continuing down this road that he's been going down for a while with Drive and Only God Forgives and The Neon Demon. I thought it was going to be a little bit of a return to his earlier works, and it wasn't. So it was a little disappointing, but still super fun to watch, I guess, as far as the visual impact and some pretty good performances from Sophie Thatcher and Ivana Rose Liu, who we talked about with Tuner a little while back. And but yeah, a little disappointing in the end. All right, let's get into our throwdown for the week. Talking about 2015's The Invitation versus 2022's The Menu. This was my matchup, and the reason I brought it to the show is because they're both dinner films, basically. Very different dinner films, but at the center of them is a cult, essentially. And what they have in common, I think, is that people were knowingly brought into this situation with whoever brought them into this situation knew they were going to die. And that's insane to me. So that's like the big connective tissue between the two, but very different cults. I'm looking forward to getting into the differences in the mindsets. What is your take on this matchup?
Yeah, I mean the Dinner Party from Hell is a it's a well-trod premise, so you have to figure out interesting ways to do it. Adding the cult element in both instances. I mean, The Menu's a little less cult and more, well, it is a death cult, so to speak. No, you're right. So that's true. So adding that element to it is a lot of fun. Watching The Menu, rewatching The Menu now, having watched all the seasons of The Bear, was really interesting now, because you see a lot of elements in that, and you get the same sense of just how brutal working in a restaurant can be. But I definitely was thinking of The Bear a lot as I was watching it this time. When I first saw it, it wasn't as much on my mind.
Yeah, there's just such a like an allegiance to that master chef.
Well, it also makes you feel like as a restaurant worker, there's very few ways out. That's why The Bear is interesting. It's the idea of someone getting into something they're obsessed about and trying to find a way out of it. Luckily, in The Bear, it was a little bit of an easier exit than in The Menu.
Yeah, not for Mikey.
That's true. Right. That's a good point.
I think what I find interesting about these is that similarity, but also I think the difference is that there are two different reasonings for the murder, essentially. Whereas in The Invitation, it feels like it's almost from the 70s, like one of those 70s cults, or the Manson family or something like that. And you really get that with the Sadie character, who's like basically feral. I mean, she feels like something you would
Yeah.
see in a '70s like
Who is that
Manson-esque cult.
guy? Was it John Jones, the with the Jonestown Massacre thing?
Jim Jones,
Jim
yeah,
Jones. It
yeah,
felt like that. Like you're right. That's kind of the vibe that you got from this. I
right,
think the
down
other
to the
thing I was gonna
drinking of the wine.
right. The other thing that parallel I think in both movies, which you have is two characters completely from the outside coming in to a place they're unfamiliar with. So in both cases, there's a female character who is the only one like really in the dark about exactly what is happening. And so it's in one instance you get to see the movie a lot through their eyes, whereas in The Invitation, she's a little bit more on the periphery. But I do think that those characters are important. They work as avatars for us to kind of walk in with no real idea of even who these people are or what's happening.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that because in The Invitation, even though the Kira character is a bit in the periphery, and this is a sort of a tight knit group. Let's just jump into The Invitation. So this is a story of a couple who lost a child and went their separate ways. They had a friend group, and the protagonist, excuse me, the protagonist, played by Logan Marshall Green, dealt with his son's death in a way that's seems like most people would deal with it. And he gets an invitation from his ex-wife for a dinner party after 2 years have passed, and she has basically joined a cult. And that's how she deals with the pain of losing a child. And she ultimately, we find out that maybe it's not all that authentic, like what she's going through. But it's just such an interesting story because this group of friends, what you get is a bunch of people who didn't know how to talk about that loss. I mean, there are multiple times throughout the film where they basically apologize for not supporting Logan Marshall Green's character Will in his grief, and his wife Eden just vanished. She went to Mexico, so nobody heard from her. But you kind of get the feeling that if he had a little more support, he would be a little farther along. Maybe not. I don't know, but he seems sort of like left out in the ocean by himself, and found a new partner in Kira, who you mentioned. And what I was going to say is that even her on the peripheral and not being a part of this group, she's interestingly assertive and kind of breaks the silence a lot of time, is very like out loud with trying to get information, and I really like that about her. And that's kind of how the Margot character is in the menu, but in a very different way. So yeah, like what did you think of The Invitation?
I was going to say that's a good catch on your part. I think that the way you set it up, because you're right, him being adrift and not really getting the support of his friend group, I think is exactly why she's assertive and more vocal than you might think a character like that would be, because I think she's trying to protect him. I think that she might be aware of the dynamic and is protective of him for that reason, and that's why she's more assertive than she might be. And I didn't really thought of that until you brought it up, but it does make perfect sense that she knows that he's going back into a place that is really difficult for him, and she feels that she has to look out for him. So that's I guess it's a subtle way of writing the script, which I think is actually pretty good now that you bring it up.
It's kind of a crazy premise where he, you know, the couple parts ways after the death of their son, and now he's invited back to the family home for this dinner after not
Right.
talking to anyone for 2 years. That feels so incredibly painful to be put back into that location. Beautiful home, by the way. I am just impressed with the design in both of these films. I want all of it, and I love seeing that. Just this stunning Hollywood Hills home.
It's also
But
nice though that he brings up the fact that it was never his home, that Eden's family had money, and it was really never
right,
his home to begin with, which is nice.
right.
I also like the use of flashback to when he walks into each room, you get a flashback of something that happened in that room, which helps fill in some of the pieces. Uh, so yeah, what did I think of the movie? I thought the script was really well constructed. Um, it didn't overstay its welcome. It was pretty tight. And when you have, how I feel about mystery boxes. That I'm a big fan of the mystery box movie when done well. This is a version of that because it takes place in one central location, and something not good is unfolding, but there are just enough red herrings and diversions to make you second guess yourself every once in a while, even though the inevitable is coming. You just don't know how. And I really like a couple of the diversions, especially the climax when they're drinking the wine, and the way that unfolds, that it gives you a diversion to something else, and you almost forget what's happening, and then come back to it, whips back to it. I thought that was really well constructed.
There are some, like you said, really interesting red herrings, and some of it almost feels like Hitchcockian in a way, like
Yes,
the
absolutely.
paranoia and the tension, and the writers are Phil Hay and Matt Manfredi, and they're like a writing team who work on a lot of things together. Aeon Flux is one of them, unfortunately,
Yeah.
but Destroyer, the Nicole Kidman film, and Phil Hay wrote Ride Along, the Ice Cube Kevin Hart film, which is interesting.
I will interrupt though. I have to say that this is another one of those. There's no other time to mention this, so I'll mention it now. They all also worked on the TV show, The Mysterious Benedict Society, for Disney. It was a Disney Plus show. That show was lovely and really enjoyable and whimsical, and I really liked it. I watched it with my kid, watched it as a family. It was really fun. And so of course that's why of all the shows Disney canceled that one. I don't even know why. But it's based on a series of books, and there were 5 books. And I didn't see any reason it couldn't continue, but they canceled it after 2 seasons. Uh that was a big loss. It's just another reason I get angry at streaming services. But it was a really lovely television show. I think it's completely gone too, by the way. Not only did they cancel it, I think they completely removed it from the streaming service. So just allow me to bitch for a minute about the loss of the Mysterious Benedict Society.
I assume that was after the invitation, right? If it was
It
Disney Plus.
was. It was. So Mysterious Benedict Society was this nice little mix of like whimsical kid show, but it had this Wes Anderson vibe to it, where it was kind of a false constructed universe, but you were okay with it because it very much leaned into the premise of how things were constructed. There are even a lot of uses of telescopes, which reminded me very much of Wes Anderson, but that's
Yeah.
neither here nor there. I don't want to get off on a tangent about Mysterious Benedict Society. Anyway,
Well, I mean, it's relevant because they wrote it, and that seems like it might, despite being a Disney property, have some of the DNA of this film with the mystery of it. So yeah, it makes sense. And uh, most of the things that they've written have been directed by Karen Kusama, the director of this film, or not most of them, but some of them, like Destroyer and Eon Flux, and she is the director who was done dirty with Jennifer's Body, the film that is having quite a resurgence and a reevaluation, just really done wrong with its marketing and kind of legendary in how it was treated as a film. I'm glad to see that getting a little more due now, and that's actually a good example of what Karen Kusama can do. I mean, there's a darkness to it that, and she also directed some episodes of Yellow Jackets, so there's kind of a dark streak to her. I don't know if she worked on that Disney show or not, but
she directed a couple of
really,
episodes, and that show was not dark in any way. So it
interesting.
does show she can pivot if she has to. But yeah, Yellow Jackets is a good example, very much in feeling of the invitation.
I'd be curious to see, like, if you went back. I guess they're not available, but if those episodes were a little darker than the other ones of that
Yeah,
show.
I don't remember anything being too dark, but yeah, maybe it was the one episode that was dark. The other thing, when you brought up the women, by the way, the movie The Women, it made me think in terms of this. The Invitation was partially financed by a production company called Game Changer. I think this was the second movie that they helped produce. And what Game Changer is it's a production arm purposely made to help female directors
Awesome.
to help get their projects off the ground. So just talking about something exclusively with women in it made me think about that. I think that's a really nice idea. But then when I looked at all the movies they produced, there have not been that many, which is unfortunate.
Yeah.
But it is part of it because I think, again, her getting done dirty with Jennifer's body kind of derailed her for a little bit, and I'm glad that the community is trying to help resuscitate her career because I think that she's very talented.
She really is. There's a lot at work here with sort of minimal pieces. I think the direction and the writing together create just such a wonderful sense of paranoia as you watch through Will's eyes, and he kind of I wonder sometimes if it's almost too much of like a shiny object for you to latch on to with the paranoia. But overall, I really love that you're kind of seeing these things. And I mean, I don't know about you, but in most cases, I make the same assumptions he makes, whether I'm seeing it through his eyes or not. I mean, you know, the Pruitt character played by John Carroll Lynch going outside with Claire. He's very smart to watch at the window. Like, you do not trust that guy with anyone.
But it's also, again, that's a nice misdirect, that very Hitchcock-like in that regard too, where the image of covers the window so we don't see it either.
Yeah.
And he doesn't see it, and it's a nice diversion at that exact moment where we know something bad is happening. We know that she doesn't make it, even though they don't tell us this.
Right.
We know that to be true. And actually, if you listen to the director's commentary, you know that to be true. It's just a scene that ends up getting cut from the final cut of the movie. Yeah, that they actually filmed the scene that was cut from the movie because she felt that it was too much of a reveal early in the pacing of the movie. But there was a scene where she's in the bushes that they actually filmed. Yeah,
that's interesting. Did you get this from the library?
I did.
I had a hard time finding it on physical media for some reason. I think there's like a UK edition or something, but I didn't have time to get it. This is one that really feels like it deserves like a repackaged physical media release because it has a cult status to it, which we'll talk about when we get into the voting.
Was that a joke in there? Was that a?
That was a joke I didn't even plan to make, and I would have never even known that I had done if you had.
What else could it have but a cult following?
That is actually a great segue into something that I wanted to talk about here, which is the Eden character, who is Will's wife. She is going along with this. So we should say that the invitation is kind of has multiple meanings. It's the title of the film because they receive like a physical invitation to this dinner party, but the invitation is also the name of this cult. And they're based in Mexico, led by Toby Huss, wonderful character actor who I'm sure we've covered 50 times on the show because he's just in everything for a minute. I really love that guy. And, you know, the invitation itself is a flat out cult. You know, the people in it are what you would expect from someone who has kind of been programmed by a cult, where they see it as their leader has the answers. They have this kind of mission toward happiness. And that starts early on when Eden talks to the Ben character, in addition to Will, about being able to just get rid of your pain. Like, you don't have to carry this around anymore. And she makes a big deal out of, she basically coped with the death of Ty, their son, and is over it after 2 years. We've later find out that that's not true. But what I wanted to say is that I think her partner, David, is he like the recruit, like the recruiter of the cult? Because he seems like, what's interesting is even though all of these people are Eden's friends, he does all of the talking or most of the talking. And he almost seems like he pulled her in because he's all in on this. He talks about being a coked out record producer in a previous life, and you get that sort of like salesman energy. And like we later find out that Eden didn't necessarily believe everything that she was talking about when it's revealed that she's still Mrs. Ty, which makes perfect sense. But do you think that she was all in on it, or was it just David is so charismatic at like selling this thing that she just went along for the ride?
Yeah, I think that when she went down and met him, he was further along than she was in it. That's the impression I get, and so he sells her on it. That he's probably a lieutenant in the cult, and helps bring her in. But they also form a connection. But so I think he's much more on board, and he's been bringing her into it more and more, and probably convinces her to do this. That's the way that I saw it too. So we can speak, by the way, about him. So his I always try to remember how to pronounce his name. It's Makeel Husman is the way you pronounce his name, and he's one of those actors I've seen a bunch of things that I really enjoy. I just think he's got this presence to him that I find really engaging. He was in The Haunting of Hill House and was really good in that too. I know you saw that,
right?
Yeah. There's just something about his presence that I enjoy, and it really fits well into this because you can see how not only could he be in a cult, but could also be a leader of a cult. He's very charismatic. There's just something calm and embracing about the way that he speaks. There's just something about it that I think works really well for the character, and that's something that he possesses well, which is why I like watching him on screen. But it works really well, and he's just creepy enough where you know something's not right.
I wonder if the grief that the Will character goes through allows him to just pick up on the thing. Like everybody else just seems charmed, and this is how cults are with cult leaders, you know, like from the outside, I guess it's you're either charmed by it, by like what they're presenting, or you're skeptical of it. I just watched a 3-episode thing called Bring Me the Beauties on HBO Max about this cult leader who recruited models. And it's like one look at this guy, you know, this guy's a cult leader. But there were so many people who were just like wrapped up in his charm and his ideas that, you know, they overlooked all of this stuff. So you really, it's like you go in one direction or the other. And it's cool that Will just sees it all. Because as I'm watching it, I'm like, something's off with all of like David and Eden and Pruitt and definitely Sadie. Like they're clearly, there's a problem here, like Will thinks, but everybody else is like, it's LA.
If you're trying to get people to buy into your cult, I feel like Sadie is a bit of a mistake. You might keep her in the room a little bit longer.
And you really don't want Pruitt to tell the story of murdering his wife.
Yeah, that's the worst party story ever.
That is a perfect time to talk about John Carroll Lynch, whom we've talked about many times on this show, but he is so good because of his stature. He is kind of a big guy. He is so menacing, even when he's like, whether he's sincere or pretending to be kind, there's just something about him that is menacing. And it's so perfect for this role because you mentioned David being like a lieutenant, like seeming to have that higher role. And it almost feels corporate in a way where he is like from corporate coming to see how David handles an invitation, because he's always looming in the background and he's always like trying to take care of something. It's really unsettling. He's so good at that. I just love him.
We've
so
also
much.
seen him play really non-menacing characters, though. He has an arc on Ballard, that Bosch spinoff on Amazon Prime, and in that one he plays the nicest person in the show, actually.
But did you not spend 4 episodes of Ballard thinking he's the bad guy? I did.
You're right. That's true. You keep thinking the shoe's going to drop, but it turns out he's just wonderful in the whole time. But yeah, that's fair.
you're predisposed to think that he's the bad guy. He played the Zodiac killer in Zodiac, right? Like,
Yeah,
yeah,
that's a fair
I
point.
just always, no matter how nice he is, you're never going to get rid of the notion that he could turn on a dime and like kill someone in a second. And that's
Well,
great. I mean, he's such an incredible actor and so perfect for this role. Just like that's the thing with these cult people is they have this joy that feels so insincere or like avoiding anything else. I mean, he's totally come to terms with murdering his wife and can tell that story amongst mixed company. That is mind blowing. That shows you how powerful the allure of the cult is. And when you believe that, you believe it. And I think David's there. It doesn't seem like Eden is there, but everybody else is there. And that's going to come into play too with the menu where it's just absolute devotion to this idea. And
yeah. Well, good.
I'll
I mean,
never understand it.
speaking of though, with Tammy Blanchard playing Eden, she does a really good job of giving you this unbridled joy, which is a complete facade. Like you can feel it. You feel that it's a facade. She does a really good job of trying to give you this idea that everything's okay, but you can see the cracks behind it the whole time. And I think the use of Will being able to see through all of this makes perfect sense because as the other person who went through the death of a child, I think you only go one of two ways. You either try hard to live with it or you try to completely forget it in a way. I think there's only a couple of ways through it. And I think that because he completely rejects the idea that she's trying to pretend it never happened, I think that's what allows him to see through it because no one else has that connection that he does. And so he understands that, the pain that's sitting there. He knows that it has to still be there. And so he refuses to let Eden pretend that everything is okay. And I think that's what makes him paranoid about what's actually happening. So again, it's just a good, it's a well-written script in that regard, where it's plausible premises as to why he would be extra paranoid or less trusting of what's happened.
As you say that, it's occurring to me that Eden is like she's not the central character of the film, but I see her in the center of a battle between Will and David, where David represents like forgetting and happiness and a sort of an illusion of happiness because it's not real ultimately, but Will represents this past life and pain and having to sit in these feelings and reckon with them. And they're both trying to get her on their side, which I think is like a really interesting power struggle. And I don't know, I'm just thinking about that now and I kind of love that. That's also great script writing to create that dynamic between these two men in like reality and fantasy basically. Very cool. There's so much in this script and this film. It had $1 million budget, but it's a great example, just like Blue Ruin was, I think, of what you can do with a small amount of money and just really good work. This did not make money. It only made $350,000, but
it was a really small release though, as well.
It was
a very limited
31
release.
screens.
Yeah. Why?
I don't know. I mean, because a woman directed it.
Yeah, you could have made a decent viral marketing campaign, and this movie would have made money. This kind of horror premise would work. I'm really, Obsession. More than shows you that
Yeah.
people are hungry for good stories like this. It really, I think you're right. It's due for a re-examination. There should be midnight showings of Jennifer's Body and The Invitation back to back, so we could really appreciate the work.
Hey, I'm all for that. I would go to that in a second. By comparison, the menu was on like 2,300 screens. So, and that made money. So you can see 31 screens versus 2,100 screens.
Yeah, it's just
crazy.
putting it out. So I have a question for you. So I well, two things. One, this is why I hate cults. I hate religious cults more than most.
I love 'em.
Because it's like You want to kill yourself? That's fine. Why are you dragging innocent people into this? Why? Why do you feel the need to bring other people into your insanity? Just if you want to off yourself, go have fun. I don't never understood that.
That's what I find to be an interesting comparison between these films is the intention behind taking people with you. Because in the invitation, I get the sense that like it's a misguided benevolence in a way where this cult, regardless of what the leader thinks at the top, the people who are the acolytes believe they're doing a service to these other people. They're giving them the happiness that they're longing to experience. Whereas in the menu, it feels like Chef Slovik is basically punishing the people,
right? Which is fair, which is a better way. If you were to punish people, well, that's different. Acting like you're being benevolent because you're insane and taking people against their will when they didn't ask for anything and trying to kill them is just such cult behavior, man. It drives me crazy. I will never ever understand it. I will. One other thing while we're talking about this, what I wanted to ask you, how did you feel about the ending? Like the very end.
I'm glad you brought that up because a couple things leading up to the ending that bugged me a little bit. You spend this film, like I just said, where David and Will are sort of adversaries in a way. And in the end, it's Mike, who's like a completely peripheral character who kills David. And that feels like such a letdown to me after seeing this battle being built between Will and David. It's like just a guy on the side kills him. And maybe that's reality. Like, I think the reality of that situation where the violence is kind of like cold, it almost feels in a way like Blue Ruin again. There's no like fanfare around it. You see David and Pruitt just kill Ben by the pool. But as a film with a story, I wanted to see Will be the one, especially after it's set up where he struggles to kill this coyote at the very beginning of the film. That seed is planted where I'm like, oh, he's going to struggle to kill David, but he's going to have to do it. And nope, just Mike kills him. Will is completely absolved from it.
Yeah. I completely agree. So that part of the ending I wanted to talk about, and then the ending. I wanted to see what you thought about that as well.
I love all of the lanterns because I think it shows you it kind of like a seed is planted for that throughout the film where everybody's like, it's LA, people are crazy. It makes sense that all of these people in the Hollywood Hills, I mean, it almost feels like a parallel to Scientology where people just like the wealthy people who live in that area are a part of this. And it's like infiltrated this group of people and has like bored into their mindset. So I get it. I think it's really clever. If there would be helicopters, like it's a disaster, probably not.
Mixed feelings about it. I love the look of it. It was a really nice visual way to punctuate the movie. And we really started thinking about it because I think I was just in this Hitchcock mindset, and Hitchcock is very much, he makes very contained movies in a way. His movies work in that way. Expanding it that wide at the very end, I don't know if that works or undercuts the idea of this particular party in this particular house, with these people in this very specific journey you take with them, which feels very personal, and then suddenly turning it at the end and expanding it wide. I don't know, but I have been thinking about it a lot, which I guess it makes it good because I've been grappling with it for days. And so maybe that does make it a good ending, but I'm just not sure. Even to right now, like I'm unsure how I feel about the fact that it's like they're just one of many, whereas when it was just them, does that also mean that there were other overseers that were at all those houses? Like how big is it?
Oh yeah, I didn't think about that.
Right?
How
so
many
those kinds of things.
Pruitts are there?
So how was it unfolding in the other houses? It just makes me wonder. It takes me a little bit out of the tightly contained, mystery box, so to speak, in this nice little place.
I can see that for sure, and that makes perfect sense. I think it could work both ways. I think it could work where none of those lamps existed, but what I like about it is just that it makes me feel unsettled that this cult has such a broad reach. You can almost like accept that this would happen in one house. Two people fell into this group, but the idea that it's so insidious makes it deeply disturbing to me, and makes me like watch my back when I meet somebody new now because you
Right.
just never know. Like, so yeah, I guess there's something to be said for either way it could have ended, because if it ended with just everything being contained in the house, that's, that's a pleasing ending too. So yeah, I don't know. I think it could work either way. Do you have anything else you want to talk about with this before we move on to the menu?
No, let's move on.
Okay. All right, then we're going to move on to our next film, The Menu. I feel like I wish I had a bell to ring now that we've moved on. Like,
Actually, you should just clap really loudly.
oh, yeah. The Menu, directed by Mark Mylod and written by Seth Reese and Will Tracy. Another cult film in a very different way. This is a story of a sex worker, basically, who gets roped into a dinner at a fancy, very exclusive restaurant with the man who hired her for the evening, knowing she was going to die, because it's a death cult and there are so many layers to this, I think, looking at like culture and celebrity and cults, that I think it's going to be really fun to break down. What did you think of The Menu?
I actually liked it more the second time that I watched it. Because as it unfolds, so there's always two things about movies like this. Movies where there's either a big reveal at the end, or there's a cult, or there's inevitability about what happens. And once you know what happens, well, how do you feel about it? Some movies that once you know the ending, they don't really work anymore. It becomes kind of boring. Whereas this one, once you know what's going to happen, you really start to zero in on the characters themselves. And it ended up being almost better when I got to pay more attention to the characters and the people in the restaurant and the way the story unfolds, knowing what was going to happen. So I think that's a sign of a really well written movie, that it didn't bore me, even though I knew what was going to happen.
I agree. The characters are so interesting, and they're all sort of like outsized versions of who these people are, right? I mean, they're like done so comedically, which speaks to the writers, which I'm sure we'll talk about. But there's a tinge of comedy to every one of them, regardless of how serious they are, and I think that just sets such a great tone for the film. It's very much the opposite tone of The Invitation somehow. I mean, it still has like the death cult vibe to it, but in a way that like makes fun of it.
Right. And that's the thing too. I think that when you first watch The Menu, because you're partially horrified by what's unfolding and how it's unfolding, you don't catch all of the humor. You don't quite get how funny it is until the second watch, where you're no longer horrified by certain things that happen. And then you catch all the subtle jokes and the deliveries and the little things that make you realize that it's actually very funny.
And each one of these characters is handled so well by the performers. I think that there's, the idea is that the chef Slowick, who brought everybody here, played by Ray Fiennes, specifically brought all of these people together for this like final dinner where he's going to kill them and himself. And each one of them basically has committed a crime against him ultimately. And so he's taking them down with him. And every performer like leans into whatever that crime is in such an outsized way that it's really, really fun. And even the Margot character, Anya Taylor-Joy, who's like the basically the protagonist, I guess. I mean, she, like you said, she's sort of the audience perspective. Even she is very outsized, and I think the they're almost like sitcom performances in a way. Some of these people maybe toned down slightly, but just there's almost no reality to any of them, and you get that from the very beginning. I love just collecting these people. You see right up front who they are. I mean,
Well,
it's great.
the thing for me, the funniest part, and maybe this is because we do a movie podcast, that the funniest thing to me is killing someone because they made a movie that you truly hated and thought wasted your time. That may be the best reason just to have someone killed in a movie.
Yeah.
It just made me laugh. So
Yeah, he had like one day off after a month or something, and John Leguizamo's film was so bad it wounded him or something. I think he says, "You gotta die."
and honestly, that's something that again in the first watch you don't really get it. I mean, you get it, but don't really get it. And the second time and the third time you watch it, that part gets funnier and funnier. Just the way that he delivers that, it really made me laugh.
What I think is, I mean, this is what I relate to, so maybe I'm seeing it more here. Is the divide between the help and like the consumer, and
Well, I just to finish that thought, and then the funniest part too is that they come back to it when the other guy says that his favorite movie was the movie that was terrible, but of course then you realize that was probably just a put on. So
right,
just an extra dig, so it's like a meta level kind of thing that actually, again, you don't really understand until you've watched it a couple of times. You're like, oh, that's actually a really fun payoff, the way that all unfolds. Anyway, go ahead.
Calling Dr. Sunshine, I think was the name of the film. I mean, why would you even turn that film on?
You know what it made me think of? The minute they said that movie, Calling Dr. Sunshine, it made me think of Patch Adams. I don't know why.
That just popped into my head when you said it. But yep.
And I really didn't. I wouldn't have killed anyone over that movie, but I did not enjoy that movie.
I think I would have killed whoever designed the poster, because they show the poster etched into one of the tortillas, and it's just god awful. So, as a poster designer, I am wounded by that. So, I get it. I get what Chef is going through here. But the thing here is like like front of house, back of house, and the crux that Chef feels is that he's a back of house guy who's through his own ego put himself just as much in front of house as back of house, and he regrets that. And so he's like at a point where he's going to take everybody down with him. And all of that is to say that, to build on you talking about John Leguizamo, is when they talk to his assistant and try to get her out of being killed, Chef says, "Where'd you go to college, Brown? Student loans? No, I'm sorry, you're dying." So it's just like the perfect delivery of like, yeah, you're not a part of this, but look, you went to Brown and didn't have to pay. You're also part of this problem. And it's just, that's the divide that happens throughout. And I really love that battle. Like, Chef is so put upon by all of these people who basically got him to where he is in some instances. And yet he's so resentful of himself, basically.
Yeah, and that he instantly recognizes Margot as someone who doesn't belong with them, and puts the gauntlet down, as you have to choose between them and us.
Yeah, he says he recognizes a service industry worker like himself. And the fact that he still calls himself that shows you that at heart, that's what he is. But all of this fame and celebrity has been put on top of it. And that's kind of what I think the crux of the film is that it's a satire on celebrity culture and especially, celebrity chef culture. Because, Tyler, who's played by Nicholas Hoult, he's someone who's all in on this, who just like worships these guys. He has a whole speech about how people who are musicians and athletes are idiots because chefs like play with the elements of nature, which is where God works. And it's like he's so into these celebrity chefs. He references the chef's table over and over again, which I think is cool because the a lot of the crew who did the filming of this are from a chef's table. So a lot of the
Yeah.
plating, if you've ever watched that show and you see the plating on this, like when they show the courses, it's the same people who do that, and it
Oh.
looks stunning.
Yeah, I read that the assistant director was the person who basically ran Chef's Table, and that's why they were able to make such nice looking plates. Yeah, that's pretty interesting.
It just speaks to this this high level of art that cooking has become, that and Margot, when she confronts Chef, really nails it. She says that even your hot dishes are cold. And I think that's what has become of him and this culture, is that, you're constantly innovating and it loses the heart of like what the cooking is. I mean, I still love like a celebrity chef and I'm fascinated by the artistry around it, but like Anthony Bourdain is kind of an outlier with that because he was somebody who was relatable and recognized, like the bullshit that comes with this high end stuff versus like the being in the weeds with cooking stuff for the everyman.
Well, I mean, it's interesting that you bring him up because I couldn't help but think about him as well, based on what happened with him, and you wonder the demons that he was grappling with and whether he dealt with that feeling as well. This idea of being a very popular celebrity chef and the expectations of that, and grappling with where you come from and what it really means. Again, it's impossible to get inside someone's head, but I couldn't help but think about that.
He's such an interesting example because he came to notoriety as a chef in the industry. I can't remember the name of the restaurant down in like the Lower East Side where he worked, but he people got to know him more as like the journalist he set out to be through television. So I don't know how many people have actually like eaten his food, but everybody
Yeah.
knows him as a chef, which I think is an interesting thing to look at in the terms of this film, because the reputation is like more important than the food. And we see that with the older couple of Judith Light and Reed Birney, who just continue to go back to this place and can't remember a single dish they've eaten over 11 visits. And the finance bros who in the beginning say, oh, this feels like the suburbs, and at least we could say we were here, and like my personal chef does it better. It's like it's all about the notoriety of having said that you're a part of something, what
Yeah, I don't want to
regardless of
get
the art.
I don't want to get in a soapbox here, but it yeah, the movie only resonates more as the years go on and everything becomes so influencer driven, and the way the culture goes. I went out to the Hamptons not that long ago, and it combined with an article I was actually reading about Nantucket. There's like this revolt in Nantucket against influencers, where restaurants are putting up signs now or what that say no influencers allowed in. And I just think that it's just, now we're getting this backlash to this because, yeah, everything only exists so that you can then present it to someone else as your cultural cachet in a way. Like everything is
Right.
presented through that way. And this is, in my opinion, how music got ruined. That concerts are no longer even about concerts. It's about saying that you were at a concert. And it's about showing people that you were there and that you bought the $500 ticket and the $100 t-shirt and that you could do it where other people can't. And I'm just not, with every fiber of my being, I reject that. I just reject all of that. I can't help it. And the menu really speaks to that. This idea that nothing is even for enjoyment anymore, as much as it's for you telling other people that you did something. And I don't know how
In a
long that can go on.
sense, in a sense, I think it's speaking to the idea that this chef is the head of a cult in this brigade that follows him to the ends of the earth, literally to death. But it's also turning the lens around and seeing that everything is a cult now with this influencing. The fact that all of these people need to be here because it's the place they're supposed to be. I mean, isn't that a cult too? Like, you're being told what to do and then you go do it. So I think this influencing has turned like society at large into a cult, basically. And I'm happy to see that we're sort of like moving past that a little bit. But to your point, something that's happened over the past year or so on social media is everybody takes a picture of the goddamn title card of a movie in a theater now to show you they were there and posts it. Like, they have their phone out. I'm trying to get more chill with that because it's like, okay, if you do that at the beginning and then you lock in, great. But nonetheless, it's like everybody has to show you that they were there. Just like the Tyler character is doing by taking photos of the food after he's told repeatedly not to do it. Like, everybody wants to be a part of something. And I think that's Chef Slowik's like whole point, is that there's no heart or individuality to anything anymore. And there are all these expectations. And if you don't meet them, you fall behind. He talks at a point about how like he says something like we strive for innovation because we fear obsolescence or something. And that sums it up perfectly. Like, everybody strives not necessarily to innovate, but to be a part of it. And I mean, it's just, everything's a cult mentality. Like, we could soapbox about this all day. I feel exactly the same way.
I know. So, right. I don't want to become a cranky old man yelling at people. So, but I really do just think that we've been around long enough where you start to see it. The soul of things are being sucked out. And I just don't believe in doing things for other people. I just do things because I want to do them, and I don't need to discuss with you every single thing that I've done. Like, I don't. That's honestly, that's why I rejected Facebook in the first place. I don't need to post where I am or where I've been or what I'm doing. I don't need your validation for that. I did stuff, and if you want to talk, I see you later, I'll tell you about it if you want to know. If not, then we won't talk about it. It's fine.
I think, like everything, social media is a tool that can be used for good, but is often like the area of good is just blown right by into a problem. And we see it with AI, we see it with everything. So
I think that's a good segue into talking about the writers of this, which the perfect kind of writers to write something like this, because it truly is a satire if looked at in the right way. And you have people who've written the show with really strong satire backgrounds.
Yeah, Seth Reese and Will Tracy, who got their start at The Onion, doing The Onion.
Will came from The Onion. One of them wrote for 3-4 seasons on John Oliver's show. The other one spent years working with Seth Meyers. So, both of them are really strong joke writers and that understand the bullshit of life in a way, like breaking down the minutia and the bullshit of that, which really comes through in the script. And as I said, that's why it lends well to repeated viewings, because there are little things dropped in there that you pick up on in repeated viewings of how strong the satire in the movie really is.
It really works so well. I watched it twice this week, and I've seen it multiple times. I didn't even take notes because I know it really well. And for me to sit down and watch a movie like that over and over again, it takes a lot. But you're right. Every time you watch it, there's still something new. And that, I think, might not speak as strongly to a script as much as it does this being like prescient. And as the world moves more toward the things they're making a satire of here, it just becomes more obvious. I also watched Soylent Green this week from 1973, which is
Soylent Green
in 2026. It's everybody remembers that, but it is so prescient. It is an overpopulated world with climate collapse run by corporations. And I feel like the menu is like that, but in real time. Like we're seeing more of the menu becoming true in a way. And it's really fascinating because it unlocks little things here and there each time you watch it. And that's a great script, in modern day.
Yeah,
So
and the director, Mark Mylod, it's interesting to see his evolution because he started out doing comedy stuff as well, and worked with Sacha Baron Cohen, I believe. So you got to start there, doing comedy things. Directed a few forgettable movies. What's Your Number was one of them, which is not a movie I necessarily recommend. Directed some
yeah.
episodes of Entourage, but it looks like he's really hit his stride now, being very specific about projects that take the piss out of the rich. That seems to be where he
Hmm.
settled in with his work. So directed a few episodes of Succession, including I think some of the best episodes of Succession at the end. Um, so he's known for that. He directed that movie, The Mountainhead. Didn't he direct the Mountainhead? That movie about the tech
I don't know
bros.
that movie.
Yeah,
Oh, with Steve Carell?
yeah. Didn't he direct that as well, or am I crazy?
He might have. I'm not sure. He does seem to have a good relationship with HBO, and I think that was an HBO film, so it would make sense.
Yeah. So clearly, this has become his wheelhouse of making things that kind of skewer the vapid nature of celebrity and the rich and all of that.
Yeah. Yeah, even Shameless, is sort
Yeah.
of like a working class show. So he really has found his niche in TV shows about this.
Yeah. He was executive producer of The Mountainhead. He didn't direct it.
Okay. But yeah, really connected to HBO, and that seems to be uh, it makes sense that he would do that as well. He must have an overall deal with them because outside of The Affair, it seems like everything he does, Game of Thrones, The Last of Us, Succession, Entourage, all HBO properties.
That's true.
Let's talk about the performances. Anya Taylor-Joy is Margot at the center, and just really stands out because she's so different from everybody else. And you get the sense early on that she doesn't really fit in, even before it's revealed who she is. I mean, it's pretty obvious when she sees Reed Birney's character and recognizes him, and then when you know that she wasn't meant to be there, and Nicholas Holt's character made a choice to, well, I guess he says he broke up with his previous girlfriend, but that he is diabolical in this obsession with Chef. Like, I mean, literally offering a sacrifice so that he can just be in Chef's presence.
Well, that's what's
But
great
Chef
about
has
that
been
reveal.
teasing him with it.
Yeah, well, let's just wonder about that reveal because it starts off where you just think he's someone who's. I mean, we all know people like this. I mean, we've all been to a Comic-Con and things like that. We know people that are obsessed with things and people and artists and whatever it is. And so it starts off like that in a way where he just seems like someone who's super into food, who's obsessive about it and knows all the little things and kind of a nerd and annoying about it, but it's fine. And then you finally get the twist of just how crazy he is. But not just crazy, you're right. It's just what he wants is more important than anything else, where he's literally willing to sacrifice another human and himself just to be able to get this meal from this chef, which is just a level of, I don't even know what the word is. You can't even tell if it's conceit or
Insanity.
just lunacy. What?
Yeah. Insanity.
Yeah, it's sure. We'll go with insanity. It's just nuts to again, one thing about yourself, but knowing he needed a +1, just bringing some random stranger in to be killed so that he could eat a meal is just and I hate to say it, but in this day and age, that does not feel in any way like something that's not believable.
Right. Especially amongst the elite.
Yeah,
You know,
it just
like,
it doesn't you really get that feeling that people are expendable, so it doesn't really matter that much.
the way I would sum up his character is he's like the acolyte of Chef that Chef's Brigade is, but without the talent. So he has the same commitment to Chef, but no ability to make food, as we learn when Slowick asks him to cook. And then, I mean, he convinces him to kill himself. And,
Yeah.
you know, my question though in that moment is, wouldn't that throw off the execution of his planned menu too, where Tyler kills himself? Or was that always part of it? I don't think it was.
My feeling is that it was because
Okay.
although doesn't he tell them that wasn't part of the original menu? I don't
Yeah.
remember. But I don't Yeah, but part of me actually thinks that that's not true either because it fits perfectly into the overall arc of what he's doing and how he's doing it. That he wants to expose this guy and then take care of him in that way. It feels a part of what he's trying to do.
Right. It could be a variable that just kind of fits in with the overall plan, even if it wasn't like written on paper. But yeah, back to Anya Taylor-Joy. She is great. I mean, she's so good in this as the thing I like about her and the Kira character in The Invitation is that they both have this confidence coming into a situation where they don't know anybody, they don't really belong there, but they're assertive and perhaps the Margot character here maybe a little too much. I mean, if Tyler hired her to be his date for the evening, I don't think it's cool that she's like shitting on all of the things that he's like excited about, you know? I mean, do you feel that way or is it like
That's fair, and that is interesting you say that because at first you do almost sympathize with him where he's trying to be excited about something and she's treating it like it's a joke, but then he kind of treats her like shit and says, "I'm the one paying for this, so just be quiet." And then that opens the window
yeah.
where you're like, "Wait a second." But yeah, at first you do feel like, well, she should just help enjoy this for him. I want going back to the original point that we were talking about with the menu, whether or not that was planned. No, it was a side thing because the menu itself was actually written down, if you remember, and they show it. It's 7 courses, and Tyler's
Sorry,
bullshit,
it
I think is
froze
what they
for a
called it.
second.
That's not in the menu.
Right.
So my impression, what I think happened is that once he realizes that he brought this girl, an outsider, in to sacrifice her, I think he made a last second change to the menu just to punish him specifically for what he did.
Okay. That makes sense.
Yeah, it does make sense.
Yeah. uh, I gosh, we should talk about Ralph Fiennes here, who is so exceptional. I mean, he's exceptional in everything, but here he feels so perfect in the put up on celebrity, basically, who maybe got lost for a while in the success of the ego and is sort of coming back to like his roots and realizing he's gone so far adrift that he no longer wants to live in a world where his ego is fed in such a way, and he perhaps is incapable of not working to feed his own ego. It's really compelling. I mean, and he's the perfect person to play this character.
It is. And the best part about it too is right at the beginning you may even feel akin to him in some way. But he's not the hero of this story either. There really isn't one, unless you count
Right.
Margot technically as the outsider just trying to survive. But he's not meant to be the person that you root for. And as you watch it more than once, you understand that they are very plainly telling you that as well. That he's a tortured person, but he is not a person that you want to be rooting for in this situation.
Yeah. But he delivers the lines so beautifully. I mean, I know he's, you know, who he is, but I can't think of another person who could convey the torture of this character as well as he does. It's really quite compelling, and had a hand in some of the script too. I read that a lot of the scenes, Mark Mylod gave everybody like a free take where they could do whatever they wanted. And a lot of things that he ended up saying were sort of maybe not the whole thing, not the whole scene was improvised, but a lot of his lines were kind of used. And this, in fact, the s'more speech at the end, you know, his pièce de résistance is turning everybody into living s'mores and burning them alive.
Yeah,
And apparently Ray Fiennes didn't even know what a s'more was because he's not from America, and that's like a very American thing. And uh, Seth Reese and Will Tracy sent him the script, and he was able to add a lot of the things in that speech from his own thoughts that ended up on screen about what an abomination this thing is, and you know.
So what we're saying is that Ray Fiennes is a snob, is basically what you're telling me. How dare you denigrate the s'more? What's wrong with you? Actually, what I read is that a lot of the scenes between John Leguizamo and Amy Carrero, who plays the Felicity's assistant, a lot of that was ad lib. Most of their dialogue was ad lib.
That makes sense because I feel like some of the time John Leguizamo is struggling to improvise a little bit on screen. Like when he's talking, when he stands up and talks to Slowick, he's like, "What's up? Hey, I'm so like it just feels like in the moment and maybe not. It doesn't land quite as well as some of the other stuff. That's interesting because I thought she was very good at it, but now that you say that, I can see a little bit of stumbling in his character.
Yeah. The sequence, I mean, their best sequence is where she tells him she's been stealing money from him, and he says, "I know, I wrote you a bad recommendation," and she says, "I know, you CC'd me on it." Like that was made up by her on the spot, which is great. It's a really great line.
That was beautiful.
Yeah,
that says so much about him. Yeah, and he's a great character because he's, I don't know who his analog would be in the real world, but he's someone who had success, I guess, but not in a way where, and Slowick speaks to this, where the art he decides to make isn't necessarily good or like enriching for the artist or the audience. And I don't know how much success he ever had, but he really just started to take some bad roles and make bad choices, ultimately, is what I get from it.
Yeah, I want to. Okay. One of the persons I want to mention in the cast, I want to mention Hong Chow, yes. who's just one of these people. She just seems to be everywhere now. When you really look for her, she was in. I remember she was my favorite part of The Night Agent. Actually, I only watched the first. She was in the first season, which is the only season I could really watch. So maybe she was the only reason I wanted to watch The Night Agent, because I couldn't stomach it after that. But I find that whenever I see her, I think she's wonderful, and she's in a lot of just interesting, diverse projects. I mean, she popped up in an episode of Poker Face. She was in Watchmen.
But she's so good here because what I love about her is that she's customer facing and clearly has the same disdain that Chef Slowick has, but has a little harder time masking that because she has to deal with these people like face to face all the time, and is really frustrated that these people are getting in the way of his vision. And that's most clear with the finance bros with whom she has like an ongoing battle. And there's just one line in particular when she comes out with the tortillas and one of the bros is like, "What is this?" And she's like, tortilla es delicioso," like completely patronizing to these guys. But she's so funny and she's so menacing, much like the film. I mean, she's a great embodiment of the whole film in that it's hilarious and dark.
Yeah. So my favorite scene with her, of course, is when she tries to kill Margot. But the best part about that, again, which you don't necessarily catch the first time you watch it, but you catch the second time, is that the reason she's trying to kill her is because she thinks that Margot is trying to take her place, where she's angry that the chef said that she forgot something, which she didn't, and used it as a reason to send Margot somewhere. And she's infuriated her. So it's just because she's insane. Like, that's how into it she is, that the thought of someone stepping in something that is literally going to kill her, and she still feels protective of it. It's yeah, and I didn't catch that the first time I saw it.
Her literal dying breath is used to say, "I didn't forget the barrel. Chef never told me." And in a nice little touch that's been building and building throughout, great writing again, she is hit in the face with a Paco jet, which is something that everybody references over and over again. Just a fine little comedy touch there. And that really sums up the film. I mean, it's so dark and funny with all of these little instances throughout that make it just give it such a great, like, biting tone on top of the darkness. And it's just so much fun. I really love this film. I love both of these, and that's why I'm not, I haven't picked a winner yet. One thing I do want to mention, because I want to get your take on this, because I'm not sure exactly what it means. Margot gets out of this death cult by going back to Chef's, like, better days, where she convinces him to make her a cheeseburger. Now, I'm on the fence about this, and I want to hear what you think. Is he so locked in to this menu and this life that he's like truly unaware of what she's doing? Or is he so, like, is it like such a breath of fresh air that she's used this history of his to bring him joy again, that he consciously lets her go? I can't tell if he knows or he doesn't.
Yeah, so that is a great question, and I'll take it a step further. Does Margot survive? Because here is what I've been thinking. And again, it took me multiple times to watch this, to think about this. So let's set it up. There's a scene in the movie where they specifically discuss that they have their own meat, their own cow meat, and they cure it for a certain amount of time in the smokehouse. And she talks about what happens if you eat the meat even a day earlier than you're supposed to. Right? So the question is that hamburger deadly meat? And does she realize that at the end? Because the way she takes that last bite is either someone who's satisfied watching that thing burn, or someone who has realized what their fate is and decided to live with it. Why does she stop the boat, or the boat dies in the middle of the water? Why does she not continue to get away? Like, why does she stop in the middle of the water? Or does the boat break down in the middle of the water? But either way, that whole scene very much opens the possibility that she doesn't make it. And that's the bigger question. So does he let her go because it doesn't matter anyway, that it still completes the circle for him? Or does he appreciate the hamburger thing and decide to let her go? I don't know. I actually don't know.
That is a leap I would never have taken. That is compelling. I'm inclined to think she gets away, but I love where your head is at.
But why would they drop that whole thing? They spend a good amount of time of her discussing the meat. And because even like the Paco jet, like most things come back in the movie. Almost everything that's mentioned does have a return in some way. There's a payoff to it. So I don't know. I just can't shake the fact that you bring that up and pay it off later. I don't know.
I love that interpretation of it. I think the reason they bring up the meat is because that's setting up the relationship between Hong Chow, Elsa, and the tech bros, or the finance bros, because that's their first interaction and they're immediately dicks to her. So she's immediately a dick right back. So I don't know, but I love your theory. I am going to entertain this and maybe interpret the ending as that from now on.
If you watch it again now, you have a reason to watch it again and see and think about it. Because it honestly is not something I thought about the first time I watched it. And then I watched it again, then I watched it again, and I'm like, wait a second. That look on her face when she eats that hamburger, I'm like, I don't know what that means. I don't know what exactly that is. But I don't know.
I watched, speaking of her taking that bite, I watched behind the scenes I do have a Blu-ray of this. And she has such a small mouth if you look at her. And she has never had a hamburger that big. And so if you watch her take the first bite in the restaurant, she just cannot get her mouth around it.
I did.
So it's just like a tiny little bite. But yeah, that bite at the end, it feels like a satisfying bite to me, but I don't know.
Right. Is it
also,
satisfying,
where's the Coast Guard guy?
Or is it screw it? Whatever. Like, it's like, right?
I'm gonna think about this. I see. I take it as like it's over, I'm out, because she wipes her mouth with the menu for the night, and I think
Right.
that's such a like screw you to the place. But man, I'm really open to this, and I'm gonna watch it again now and think about that, because there was no ambiguity for me except for Chef's like awareness of what he was doing. So
Yeah,
maybe that's not ambiguous at
yeah, I
all.
just don't feel like honestly, I don't feel like the chef could be gaslit in that way either. I just don't like he's not an idiot. It's not, it feels like the way that Bugs Bunny fools Elmer Fudd. Like that's not real. You're not, you're aware. No one gets fooled that quickly. So I don't know.
Oh, yeah, maybe that's a flaw in the writing, but I mean, he's basically gaslit himself for like his whole career, essentially.
Possibly.
So I always saw it as her having the street smarts to like find his weakness and use it to her advantage. But yeah, maybe she can't find his weakness and only thinks she does, and he's smarter than her.
I
Man,
mean,
mind
again,
blown.
I think it is a fun script because it's true. This is something we can argue about. It doesn't make it clear one way or the other. It gives you the breadcrumbs to go either way. I mean, they also spend time setting up that photo, showing you how happy he was making hamburgers, and they give you all that, and she uses it. So it's perfect. You can totally see it that way. And then
Yeah.
you can go further back and they lay breadcrumbs for a different way, and you could take it either way. So uh yeah, I think it's well constructed. It's fun. I like movies that you can argue about. That's fun.
Let me ask, did you watch this immediately after the invitation?
I watched it the day after.
Okay. So you might have had that seed planted of the tainted food.
Yeah, it's possible.
Interesting.
It is. I don't disagree with you. It's possible that the seeing the invitations in the way that unfolded made me attuned to see these things or to think about them. That's totally fair.
I love this so much. I'm so happy you brought this up because I would have never imagined this in a million years. And it makes me see the whole film in a different way now. There are so many layers to it and so many interpretations. It's fantastic. But let's move on to our head-to-head comparison because we're running a bit long. I just want to look at the two together because as we've talked them out, I'm still on the fence, and I think both of them have so many merits to them. So, what's your take on the story? Which one do you think is more effective in the story that it's telling? Because they're telling the same story in a way, but also two very distinct stories at the same time.
Yeah, it's really nitpicky to get into the idea of the story and how it unfolds. And that's, I feel like I have to get, you know, into the weeds about it. But I guess I have to say that the menu is probably more effective because, like I said to you, it's a story that holds up on repeated viewings and you keep finding little things in it. And so I think for that reason, it's a stronger story. Is that, it's the best I got.
I tend to agree with you. I don't want to take anything away from the invitation because I feel like it's so impactful, but it's also very straightforward and you kind of know where it's going right away. The whole time you're watching it, at least I did, like what's going to happen. And the marketing around it included, like, I don't know if you've ever seen the poster, but it's Logan Marshall Green standing in the yard, but he's distorted because like where the camera would be big in the frame is a glass of wine. So it's telling you right in the advertising that this wine is the thing. And when you get into the film and you hear cult, you immediately think of Jamestown or Jonestown. And it kind of doesn't surprise you. Whereas the menu, even though there are, breadcrumbs, it's still incredibly surprising. I mean, who saw this ending with like marshmallow ponchos and like chocolate fezzes,
Right.
So I think the story is so effective, not only in its themes, but in its execution because it has so many surprises. So yeah, I'm with you on that. I think the menu is my pick here. What about characters? Which one do you think has better characters in it?
Oh, man. I think The Invitation probably has better characters.
Oh, okay.
And this is just a gut feeling. Again, the menu, as you said, I mean, they're broad strokes of people to fit certain parameters, and you have the obsessive chef and the outsider, and they're all really good. But I mean, as far as is there any deepness to the characters really? I mean, they're there to present this to you in a certain way, whereas The Invitation feels more like actual people. They're all grappling with this loss and how they've responded to it, and these weird people that are now in their midst, and how the whole thing unfolds. I think the character is a little bit stronger.
Yeah, huh. For me, the invitation, I feel like Will is drawn very, very well. And I think Eden is sort of in the middle. But I think David feels like David and Pruitt and Sadie feel like broad cult members to me. Like you get the sense that they're not. I mean, they're like what everybody's idea of cult members are in a way. And I don't know that the peripheral characters are fully fleshed out either, but I do think that Will is so compelling at the center, and that might be all you need because Eden also has some complexity to her, and you know her story, so she is also drawn out pretty well, though she does have sort of the mask of this cartoonish cult vibe to her. The menu, right? They're so broad, and there are things to latch onto, but there are things to latch onto that you could latch onto with anybody. And I don't know that it's as broad with Will in the invitation. So even though I don't necessarily agree that everybody is fleshed out that well in the invitation, I do think at its center it's super strong. And I'm going to agree with you that the invitation is the winner here. Which is weird because I love all the characters in the menu, but yeah, there's just not that much to them.
Yeah, I totally do. It's not a knock on the menu at all.
What about tone and consistency?
Uh, um, you know what? I'm gonna have to go tie on this one. I appreciate that the invitation is clearly carries one tone throughout the whole movie, whereas the menu is juggling a couple of them. But they're both executed really well. I don't think there's anything wildly anything that throws off the pace of the movie in either sense. So I'm gonna go tie.
Yeah, I think I'm going to agree with you again because they're both very well paced, very, very maybe not necessarily linear in their tone, but they both kind of sail until there's a big reveal, and then things go off the rails in both films. I think the invitation is so steady in its building of suspense through paranoia, and I really love that. And the menu just builds in its absurdity and it's like disdain basically. So, but they both end with like a crescendo that is different from the rest of the film, but very much in line with it. So yeah, you've convinced me that it's a tie. So I'm gonna agree with you. Cultural staying power. I don't know that either of these have. I mean, we know the invitation. Like 10 people saw it.
Yeah, the worst part about the invitation is there was another movie that came out in 2022 called The Invitation, which also involves like being invited to some party, but I think it involves vampires. I'm not even sure, honestly. But that is the one that pops up if you search The Invitation, and it comes up first. So it's not great. And then there's The Invite that came out this year, which really doesn't help things. So
yeah, fantastic movie though. So, but I mean, what about the menu? I don't hear too many people talk about it, but I think that might be because as a society, we're embarrassed that it's turning the mirror around upon us and like we're terrible people.
Maybe.
So maybe people are aware of it, but don't want to admit to being like the people in it. Yeah, I mean, this might be a tie too, because neither of them really has.
It might be
anything.
the menu by default, because you can at least find things about the menu if you really search it up. It comes up easier. We'll put it that way.
That's true. Yeah, I think you're convincing.
But you're the
me
one that knows if there's any TikTok memes about it or anything. I'm not.
I don't see much about it, but I can see how, because of its satire tone. Also, by the way, we didn't mention, but produced by Will Ferrell and Adam McKay when they were still partners. So it has very much like their fingerprints on it. And I think most things they do sort of has some sort of relevance in the culture. So perhaps this kind of falls into the same boat. But yeah, the Invitation, this is another one like Blue Ruin that nobody has seen, but the people who have seen it really love it. Sadly, though, just a lot of people haven't seen it, so by default, it doesn't have sort of the doesn't cast such a wide net over the culture. Um, Man, we're neck and neck here. We both agree on this, and I didn't ask you at the beginning which one is in the lead for you going in. So it'll
I'm
be
glad you didn't ask because I
reveal
wasn't
at the
sure.
end. Yeah, I love when it's like this. We don't know. I mean, that's the fun part of talking through them is you think about these all week, but you don't think about some of the things. Like I don't think about things that you're going to bring up, and you might not think about things that I think about. So it's a real conversation to figure out a winner, and I love it. Let's move on to our 5 questions for the week. These are things that are just for fun, and I think can have some funny answers, or just help us, inform which film we're gonna call our winner. Which one's more rewatchable for you? I think this is pretty slam dunk for
Yeah,
a
the,
lot
the
of them.
menu is more rewatchable.
Yeah. I mean, I watched both of these twice this week, and I really enjoy revisiting The Invitation because I still do see new things in that as well. But I mean, just tone wise, it's much more grim and dark, and the menu is so fun, on top of its darkness. So yeah, I'm with you. Uh, would you want to hang out with anybody from either of these movies?
Wow. I don't want to hang out with anybody in The Invitation, really. Especially now that the only ones left are traumatized, so I definitely don't want to hang out with them. The menu, I mean, the only person worth hanging out with would be Margot, right? Maybe. She seems okay, but no, not really. I'm not really sure I'd be hanging with anybody in these movies.
Yeah, I don't know. I I I might want to hang out with Elsa, Hong Chao character, because she sort of feels aligned with me in that she's has a lot of disdain and is kind of funny about it, a little passive aggressive.
Yeah, but she
I
also
kind of like
seems
her.
pretty obsessive about her job, so I don't know. I'm not really sure.
Yeah, a little ruthless too, I guess. Maybe that's not a good trait to have in the people around you. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, maybe you're right. Maybe nobody. I would love to hang out with like pre-death Will from the Invitation. He and Ben, it's revealed, had a business together, and Ben's like the fun guy. So that would have been nice in the before times. Is this a career peak or valley for anybody involved?
That's a tough one. I don't think so. Although, after watching The Invitation, you'd like to think that some of these actors, especially Logan Marshall Green, would be a little bit bigger than they are. I mean, although he's definitely been in some things, but he was just in the Odyssey, even though you
Yeah,
you wouldn't know it. Uh, but yeah, not as much as I would think. So it's hard to say. I don't necessarily think so.
we didn't talk much about Logan Marshall Green, but he's someone I would love to see more leading roles from. Everything he's done since this has kind of been, for the most part, except for the film Upgrade, which if you haven't seen is really wonderful, and I'd love to find something to compare that with on the show. But everything else has been sort of a side character, to a degree. He did this weird film that David Duchovny made called Reverse the Curse about the Boston Red Sox,
Right.
which is very strange. But he's someone I think is really compelling as an actor. Kind of reminds me of like an indie film Tom Hardy a little bit, and I really
See
like
that?
him. So I would love to see more from him. This probably isn't a career peak just because nobody saw it. So if it is, I feel very bad for him. I think he has a lot more down the road. He's really good. Um, Karen Kusama, is it? Nah, I guess not. I mean, it's hard to say, but well, I guess Yellow Jackets I would think would be the most successful thing that she's done to date. Perhaps Jennifer's Body, we'll learn in retrospect, is a career peak for her, because I think that's going to just keep trending upward with how people perceive it. Okay. Steven Spielberg's directing one. Which one is he doing?
I have to say, I think he probably would be better directing The Invitation.
Oh, interesting. How
Yeah,
come?
I know. Just because it's an exercise in like technical filmmaking, which I think he would take to, and I think, yeah, I think he would work better in that tone. I'm not totally sure that Spielberg would be able to get the satire that we're looking for in the menu. I mean, if you think about his only satire, honestly, was 1941. If you think about it, right?
Yeah.
Um, so he's
Didn't
yet,
go so
and,
well.
and he never went back to it. So he's yet to prove that he can really make a satire. So I think The Invitation would probably work for him.
Yeah, you're selling me on that. I was thinking the menu because it's sleek and it's like shiny, but
Yeah, that was the part that I
I
was
don't.
thinking at first, but yeah, I don't. The one thing, and I love Spielberg. He's never really established he can direct satire, at least not to my knowledge.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think I keep thinking about Brian De Palma directing The Invitation because it's
That
so
would be,
Hitchcockian.
yeah.
Like I
That I
think it would
mean,
be
yeah, I totally agree with you. That would work.
like I mean, it begs for a split diopter shot between the upstairs dining room and the downstairs living room. Oh, so perfect. Would either film be better if you swapped lead actors? I don't think there's really a one for one here. You'd have to swap Anya Taylor-Joy and Logan Marshall Green, both three name actors. That's
Yeah,
something.
that's fair.
You
I
can't. I
mean, it
mean,
could work. It could work. But I don't think it would be better.
yeah, no, you can't really. I mean, I don't know. Like if you swap the secondary, like Anya Taylor-Joy for for the Eden character and Logan Marshall Green for the Nicholas Holt character.
Or Logan Marshall Green and Ray Fiennes. You could swap those characters.
Oh yeah. No, nobody's gonna do that like Ray Fiennes.
No, you're right.
Yeah. The answer's no here. Okay. Well, we've come to an end. We've deliberated. Let's go to our online poll results. We are Movie Throwdown Pod on social media, where you should follow us and vote in our weekly polls to help us figure out which film is better. Uh, where do you think they landed this week?
Since no one probably saw The Invitation, I feel like the menu is going to have to win by default.
Okay. You would be wrong. The Invitation by a hair, 18-15. Not a lot of voting this week, but it was a tight one. Again, like I said with Blue Ruin, I think it's a matter of the people who follow us being film people and casting that vote. So perhaps it's like a skewed result because of that. I don't know if there's somewhere else I could put it where people who aren't like film people necessarily would vote on it, but I think anytime you get like a solid underseen indie film, that's going to do pretty well with our
Yeah,
audience.
that's okay. I'm happy to see it. Maybe it will bring more eyeballs to it.
Yeah, I hope so. I really think The Invitation is one of I keep comparing it to Blue Ruin, but I think they're just both really underappreciated, very solid films that more people should see. And those are the kinds of things that down the road will get like a really good physical media release, like a highly anticipated one. So I hope that happens. All right, it's verdict time. After everything we've talked about, where do you land with the better film this week?
I'm leaning towards the menu by a hair. I just, I'm a big fan. It's some of my two favorite movie genres in a way are mystery box movies and satires when they're done well. And so it's hard for me to choose, but the satire of the menu works just a little bit more for me. So I would probably go back to it more. So I think I'm gonna have to lean towards the menu.
Okay, you're going with the menu. For me, Man, I still cannot pick a winner. I mean, both. I love a good cult, whether it's on film or in real life. I'm really into it
Well,
because
not to
it's
join
like
it, just to observe it, though, right? Not not to be in one.
to be determined.
Okay. So basically, what you're telling me is that if you invite me over for dinner, I should turn it down.
Yeah, don't drink the punch.
Okay.
I'm just fascinated by them. I'm sure everybody who joins one says this, but I cannot see myself ever being persuaded to join one. But the fact that people can be is what's so fascinating to me. I did try to get into the Scientology Center in Los Angeles, and Laura and our friends were like, "Do not go in there. Like you're never coming out." But I was like, I have to see what it's all about. I'm fascinated by it. So I do love a good cult film. But I love a good satire, especially when it's taking the piss out of like our horrible culture and the wealthy. So I really love that.
You know what someone should do? I just thought of this. Someone should do a study as to whether or not people of our generation are more or less inclined to join cults. Because my initial feeling is that less inclined, just because I feel like we're more cynical than most. We had an inbred cynicism about us,
Right.
which is why I would never join a cult in that way. Like I'm just too cynical to like want to join anything. But I have to say, the last few years have changed my idea about our generation, so to speak, and their willingness to step into cults or, believe things. So I wonder, I would be curious to know whether or not the interest in cults rose or fell with us.
Yeah, that is interesting. And I would also be interested to see if the idea of social media has made younger people more susceptible to a cult, because that's all about fitting in. And is it easier for a cult to prey upon victims on social media than it is like, enlisting people at the airport or in Mexico or something? It feels like it must be. Younger people, this is a broad generalization, but it seems like because of social media, that need to fit in is so much greater than it was for anybody who came before. But I mean, cults were very prominent in like the 60s and 70s. I mean, maybe they didn't have like a billion members, but I don't know. It's interesting to look up. So I might do a little research on this. Yeah. So which film am I leaning toward? The Menu, more rewatchable, more fun. But I think I'm going The Invitation because I love how I love like the reality of it, like the darkness of it. I love the themes of dealing with grief and trying to find a way out of that grief. And I think it's executed beautifully in how they do that. I think for such a small budget, the great writing, the solid performances really make it stand out to me. It's very difficult because I also love The Menu. I really think The Menu is a great film, and it's the one I've seen more often and the one I will, as I said, will rewatch more often. But there's something about The Invitation that really just kind of lingers for me. And you know what? I'm saying this in the moment, but the ending of The Invitation, since we discussed like if it works better that way, is something that I find compelling. But now, since you've introduced this ambiguity around the end of The Menu, maybe I'm going to change my mind after I think about that for like a day or two. So I don't know. Right now, I'm going The Invitation, but I might report back next week and have changed my mind and go with The Menu because like you blew my mind with that interpretation of the ending. So
I'm glad
I have to process. So yeah, we're split on this week. I think we should just call it a tie because they're both so good in their own ways, covering the same topic in unique fashions. Even though the audience picked The Invitation, it was so close. I just want to call it a tie because I don't want to.
Plus, I forgot to mention my two
either.
favorite kinds of movie genres, but I'm also a sucker for a good eat the rich movie. So that probably is what tipped it in the favor this week.
Right. Yeah, I'm with you. I love that. And I also love food styling. on screen or in magazines. You know, I have such a, I've done a little bit of that with food photography and like as a professional, and I know what food stylists go through, and it's amazing. And the things that they plate in this film are just like on a different level. It's really, really cool.
I saw an off-Broadway play years ago called Tabletop, and the premise of it was a story that took place at a photography studio that created photographs for food advertising.
Uh,
And so as
no
as the
kidding.
story unfolds, you know, they're plating all these things to photograph them for advertising, and you got to see how they make things look so shiny or appetizing. It was really fun. It was a good play, but I loved seeing that, you know, the story, the what's behind making these things look so good. It was a pretty fun show.
It's really an interesting industry. I don't know if I ever told you this, but I was photographing recipes for Veg News, the vegan magazine. And so I mean, where I'm recording today, this is like a photo studio. So I would have my camera in here and I would make recipes and I would have to do all that food styling. I had so many books on food styling, and the tricks are just so compelling, like mashed potatoes for ice cream, or like it's not all a lie, but there are so many things like motor oil on top of stuff to give it a sheen. And like, it's so fascinating. I'm trying to wrap my head around how they did that while performing a play. That's really fascinating. So they actually had like dishes
Well,
on stage.
so yeah, it wasn't exactly. I mean, plus because we're at a remove because we're in the audience, so it didn't have to be perfect because they're
Right.
making small things. But they did tell you some of the tricks of how they're doing this stuff, so
Cool.
you got
Yeah.
to see behind the scenes of how they perform it, whether it necessarily paid off in the end. You didn't have to worry about it because weren't really looking at it up close.
Oh, I love that. What an interesting premise for a play.
Yeah.
Okay, well, let's wrap this up. Let's talk about next week, because I think it's going to be
Yeah,
no cults
we need a
involved.
palate cleanser week. That's what we need.
That's right. We're gonna taste bergamot in there, just like Tyler did with the tea. By the way, that was a great moment where you just saw Chef's disdain for Tyler, where he's like, "Am I getting bergamot?" He's like, "Yes, you're getting bergamot." I love that. Anyway, next week we're gonna look at two Kevin Hart films, just for fun. You know, we're gonna talk about Get Hard from 2015, and it's gonna throw down against Central Intelligence from 2016. And I think what's interesting about this is that you have Kevin Hart basically being Kevin Hart, because to my mind, he has one gear, but he's paired with two, I wouldn't say comedic actors, but I think The Rock, Dwayne Johnson, I guess we call him now, is incredibly funny. And Will Ferrell, of course, is incredibly funny. So I think, and both just seem nice by all accounts. So I think it's going to be interesting to see how he plays against these two different people, because their energy is similar, but they're very different too, and culturally very different. So I think it's going to be a lot of fun to talk about this. So please do come back for that. And in the meantime, drop us a line if you have something to say about the show. We're moviethrowdownpod@gmail.com. And do follow us on social media, where you can vote in our polls and tell us if you think Get Hard or Central Intelligence is the better film. We're at Movie Throwdown Pod. And yeah, join us next week when we talk about those two films. We'll see you then. So long.